afternoon, and a warm welcome to the fourth series in the webinar series for Transforming India Through Quality Education 2018. CI Institute of Quality initiated a webinar series for all educators to engage in deliberation with prominent educational and pedagogical leaders across India. Today's webinar, which is addressed on CI Stars of Education Performance Excellence Recognition Program, and I am Sajan, who is the faculty for the presentation. I have nearly 18 years experience totally in the education sector, 13 years in teaching and leadership, and 5 years in training and consulting schools and higher education institutions in improving the quality through process optimization, 5S, TPM, and also using other appropriate quality tools. As delegates, the question and answer session will be open towards the end. So if you have any questions, you can just type it on the right side in the dialog box under questions. Coming to the CI IT Stars of Education Performance Excellence Recognition Program 2018, this is an awareness webinar where we are going to focus on the background and what is CI Education Framework for Performance Excellence, the pillars of institutional excellence, CI Education Framework for Performance Excellence, the core values and concepts, and performance excellence maturity. We'll also look at which sector can be applied and who can apply it and what is the eligibility criteria and why education institutions have to apply for this recognition program and how is assessment done and what is the guidelines in scoring. The background, CIIQ is a pioneer in transforming the holistic development of institutions for over a decade and helping institutions achieve their potential through training, counseling, assessment, and awards and recognition programs. CI Exim Bank Award for Business Excellence has had few of the education institutions participate. They were of the view that a framework contextualized to the education system would add value in helping them internalize the required criteria and enhance the performance. Therefore, in this area, to fulfill this need and promote the culture of performance excellence across the education institutions, CIIQ developed the CIIQ Education Framework for Performance Excellence, which is adapted from the requirements of Baldrige Excellence Framework Education. Now we are looking into the pillars of institutional excellence, where we have identified student development, teaching and learning focus, academic and administrative excellence, result orientation, and staff development, and which we have abbreviated as STARS. Now, the CI Education Framework for Performance Excellence. This performance system consists of 6 categories in the center of the figure, and these categories define your processes and the results you achieve. The performance excellence requires strong leadership and is demonstrated through outstanding results. Those categories are the ones that is highlighted in the figure: institutional leadership, planning and policy, students and parents, and the results, staff, educational processes. Now the word integration, which is at the center of the figure, shows that all the elements of the system are interrelated. The center horizontal arrowheads show the critical linkage between the leadership triad, that is the institutional leadership, planning and policy, and students and parents, and the results triad, which is the staff, educational processes, and results, and the central relationship between the leadership and the results categories. Now, the center vertical arrowheads point to and from the system foundation, which provides information on and feedback to key processes and the institutional environment. Now, looking at the framework, starting with the institutional profile. The institutional profile sets the context for your institution, and it serves as the background for all you do. The results triad includes your staff focus process, your key educational processes, and the performance results they yield. All sections leads to results, which is a composite of student learning and process, students and parents focus, staff focus, leadership and governance, and budgetary, financial, and market results. And the core values and concepts, the basis on which the education criteria is set, are embedded in high-performing institutions. And the system foundation, which is nothing but measurement, analysis, and knowledge management, is critical to effective management and to a fact-based, knowledge-driven agile system for improving performance and competitiveness. And finally, the leadership triad emphasizes the importance of leadership focus on planning and policy and students and parents. Coming to the core values and concepts. These beliefs and behaviors are embedded in high-performing institutions, and they are the foundation for integrating key performance and operational requirements within a results-oriented framework that creates a basis for action, feedback, and ongoing process. The CII Performance Excellence Criteria, which is built on the Baldrige model, are set on the following interrelated core values and concepts, which is in the center, which is the systems perspective, where systems perspective means managing all the components of an institution as a unified whole to achieve your vision, ongoing success, and performance excellence. Successfully managing overall institution performance requires realization of your institution as a system with interdependent educational processes. The next criteria is on visionary leadership, which is shown in the form of a ray around the system's perspective. And in visionary leadership, the institution's senior leaders, leadership team, and board members are expected to set a vision for the institution, create a focus on students and parents, demonstrate clear and visible institutional values and ethics, and set high expectations for the staff. The vision, values, and expectations should balance the needs of all your stakeholders, and the leaders should also ensure the creation of strategies, systems, and methods for building knowledge and capabilities, stimulating innovation, requiring accountability, achieving performance excellence, and thereby ensuring ongoing institutional success. The next value is on student-centered excellence, where students and parents are the ultimate judges of the institution's performance and the quality of the educational programs and services that the institutions provide. Thus, the institution must consider all educational program and service features and characteristics and all modes of students and parents' access and support that contribute value to the students and parents. And such behavior leads to student and parent acquisition, parent satisfaction, preferences and loyalty, positive referrals, and ultimately the institution's ongoing success. And the institution should also focus on valuing people, where the institution's success depends on an engaged staff that benefits from meaningful work, clear institutional direction, the opportunity to learn, and accountability for performance. That engaged staff must also have a safe, trusting, and cooperative environment. And the successful institution must have a culture of inclusion that capitalizes on the diverse backgrounds, knowledge, skills, creativity, and motivation of its staff and partners. The next value is on institutional learning agility. Success in today's ever-changing, globally competitive environment demands continual institutional learning and agility. And agility requires a capacity for rapid change and for flexibility in educational processes. Institutions face ever shorter cycles for introducing new or improved educational programs or services, and non-profits and government institutions are increasingly being asked to respond rapidly to new or emerging social issues. Disruptive events are occurring more frequently. They can be triggered by innovative technologies or program and service introductions, economic upheaval or stress, major weather events, regulatory demands, or social or societal demands. Institutions must be capable of making transformational changes on an ever shorter cycle time. And the next value is focusing on the success of the institution. Therefore, ensuring institution success now and in the future requires an understanding of the short and longer term factors that affect your institution and its sectors. Ensuring this ongoing success requires managing uncertainty in the environment, as well as balancing some stakeholders' short-term demands with the institutions and stakeholders' needs to invest in long-term success. Therefore, the pursuit of sustained growth and performance leadership requires a strong future orientation and a willingness to make long-term commitments to key stakeholders, the students and parents, the staff, suppliers and partners, the public, and the community itself. Next value that should be found in all institutions, successful institutions, is managing for innovation. Innovation means making meaningful change to improve the institution's educational program and services, processes, educational processes, and business model with the purpose of creating new value for stakeholders. Innovation should lead the institution to new dimensions of performance. Innovation requires a supportive environment, a process for identifying strategic opportunities, and the pursuit of intelligent risk. Innovation and continuous improvement are different, but complementary concepts. Successful institutions use both approaches to improve performance. And another important value is management by fact, where it requires the institution to measure and analyze the institution's performance both inside the institution and in your competitive environment. Measurements should derive from institutional needs and institutional planning and policies, and they should provide critical data and information about key processes, outputs, results, outcomes, and competitive and education sector performance. Another important value which most institutions must look into is the societal responsibility, where the institutional leaders should stress responsibilities to the public and the consideration of societal well-being and benefit. Leaders should be role models for your institution and its staff in the protection of public health, safety, and the environment. This protection applies to any impact of the institution's educational processes. Also, the institution should emphasize resource conservation and waste reduction at the source. The value on ethics and transparency. Stress ethical behavior in all stakeholders, transactions, and interactions. The institution's governance body should require highly ethical conduct and monitor all conduct accordingly. The senior leaders should be role models of ethical behavior and make the expectations of the staff very clear. And the final value, based on which the set of criteria are built, is delivering value and results. By delivering value to key stakeholders, the institution builds loyalty, contributes to growing the economy, and contributes to society. To meet the sometimes conflicting and changing aims, the balancing value implies your institutional planning and policies should explicitly include key stakeholder requirements. Now we can look at the diagram still further, where the set of values is surrounded by the process, that is institutional and leadership, planning and policy, and also the results, which is the institutional leadership and government results, students learning and process results, which is basically the uh, results. Now moving on to next slide, that is on the criteria. Therefore, there are 7 criteria starting from institutional leadership, institutional planning and policy, students and parents, measurement, analysis and knowledge management, staff and education process, and finally the results. These criteria are further divided into subcategories. Around 17 educational subcategories are there, plus 2 in the institutional profile, each with a particular focus. And these subcategories are divided into 3 groups according to the kinds of information they ask for. The institutional profile asks you to define your institutional environment, and the process subcategories, that is categories from number 1 to 6, ask you to define your institution's process, and the results subcategories, category 7, asks the institution to report results for the institution's processes. Now let us take one of the criteria as an example to elaborate, and we are looking at the criteria number 6, which is the educational processes. The educational processes category asks how your institution designs, manages, improves and innovates its educational programs and services, and how it improves operational effectiveness to deliver value to students and parents, and also to achieve ongoing institutional success. Now, under this criteria, we are looking at 2 sub-criteria, 6.1 and 6.2, where 6.1 is about academic and administrative processes, where the institutions are asked how do the institutions design, manage and improve key education processes, programs and services. And sub-criteria 6.2, focusing on educational process effectiveness, how do the institutions ensure effective management of your educational processes. And the figures that you see mentioned as 45 points and 40 points is the scoring that has been allotted to each of this sub-criteria, which is totaling to around 85 points for the educational processes. And these points are the ones that will be used for scoring, which we will discuss in the later part of the presentation. Now let us just delve a little bit deeply into the sub-criteria. In sub-criteria 6.1, the details that must be included are on process, program and service design. And if you look at the process, program and service requirements, the questions that should be asked by the institution is that how do we determine key academic and administrative process, program and service requirements? What are the institution's key processes? What are the key requirements for this academic and administrative process? And when we look into the other area, second area, design concepts, how the institutions design academic and administrative process, programs and services to meet the requirements of the stakeholders, how it is incorporated, and using new technology, institutional knowledge, program and service excellence, value, and the potential need for agility into these processes, programs, and services. Looking into the next area under the subcriteria 6.1, process management. There are three areas again. Process implementation. How does the day-to-day operation of academic and administrative process ensure that they meet key process requirements? What key performance measures or indicators and in-process measures do we use to control and improve academic and administrative process? How do these measures relate to the quality of outcomes and performance of the educational programs and services? And look at the support processes. How do you determine your key support process? What is your key support processes? How does your day-to-day operations of this process ensure that they meet key institutional support requirements? And here, when we talk about processes and support processes, the key process for any educational institution, it is the teaching learning process, which is forming the heart. And support processes could be the staff development, the admission, and the various other library, the process that is followed, or transportation, safety. They all come under as the example for support processes. The third thing here we're looking is the process, program, and service improvement. Therefore, how do you improve your academic and administrative processes, programs, and services to increase student learning, institutional performance, and also enhance core competency and reduce variability? And the final area under the subcriteria 6.1 is on innovation management. And here the institutions must look by asking these questions. How do the institutions manage for innovation? How do you pursue the key opportunities that you determine are intelligent risk? And how do you make financial and other resources available to pursue these opportunities? And finally, how do you discontinue pursuing opportunities at the appropriate time to enhance support for higher priority opportunities? Let us look into the subcriteria 6.22 to understand further about the education process effectiveness. Here we have the first area, process efficiency and effectiveness, where the institutions must have the mechanism to control the overall cost of your functioning. And how do the institutions incorporate cycle time, productivity, and other efficiency and effectiveness factors into your academic and administrative process? How do the institutions prevent errors and rework? How do the institutions minimize the cost of inspections, tests, process of performance audits as appropriate? And finally, balance the need for cost control with the needs of the students and parents and other stakeholders as appropriate. The next area under the subcriteria 6.2 is focusing on supplier and service management. And here the institution must ask questions like, how do you manage your supply and service providers? How do you select suppliers? When you mean suppliers, it could be the suppliers who supply uniform, stationery, service providers like computer lab, chemicals, laboratory items, and ensure that they are qualified and positioned to not only meet operation needs, but also enhance your performance and your students and parents' satisfaction. And you should also look into how do the institution measure and evaluate suppliers and service providers' performance. And how do you provide feedback to your suppliers and service providers to help them improve, and also deal with poorly performing suppliers and service providers. And the third aspect or area under the sub-criteria 6.2 is on safety and emergency preparedness of the institution. The safety, how do the institutions provide a safe operating environment? How does the safety system address accident prevention, inspection, root cause analysis of failures and recovery? And in the case of emergency preparedness, how do the institution ensure that it is prepared for disasters or emergencies? How does the disaster and emergency preparedness system consider prevention, continuity of educational process and recovery? And how does the disaster and emergency preparedness system take reliance on suppliers and partners into account? And final key important thing is about data security and backup and its recovery systems during disaster. How do you ensure security of your information, data, and prevent unauthorized access to the data? How do you ensure security of your website and other platforms? And how do you manage social media? And what is your backup plan and disaster recovery system? We saw the criteria and the sub-criteria, and we saw what is expected of the institutions in the form of asking questions, and we have to see whether those practices are there in the institution. And based on that, the performance excellence maturity is built, where the overall score, if it is between 300 to 449, the institutions are given the commendation for adapting excellence, which is a 1 star, and commendation for commitment to excellence in education when the score is between 450 to 599, 2 stars. And finally, if the score is above 600 and above 600 and above, commendation for the leadership position through education excellence. This is how the performance excellence maturity is modeled at. So apart from the recognition criteria that we have already saw earlier, the institutions will be recognized for their good management practices in the following areas. That is curriculum design, implementation and review, teacher empowerment programs, parent engagement programs, school community connect, and institutional performance management system. And please note that the recognition criteria is subject to change by the jury, and if there is a need, and the jury's decision on the different recognitions will be considered as final, and that will be communicated in due course and as applicable. Coming to the sectors. So here the sectors, we deal with all the institutions, government and government aided and private, and we are looking at 2 streams. One is the school education and the higher education stream. And if you see under the sectors and the streams, we have categorized them further based on the strength of the students. For example, let us just look into school education under the government and government aided. School education offering education to class 10 or class 12, whichever is higher. Less than 1,500 students is considered one category, and 1,500 students and above is considered as another category. And similarly, in the case of higher education, which is offering education post class 12, they will be considered as less than 1,000 students is placed as one category, 1,000 students and above is placed as another category. Therefore, this is how we are categorizing, and the same thing is also followed for private institutions as well. Now coming to the eligibility criteria. Educational institutions registered and functioning in India is an important criteria to apply. Then, second criteria is that there should be minimum 3 badges completed or passed out, 10th, 12th, diploma, degree, post-graduation, whichever is offered as highest. And they must also have necessary approvals for functioning from appropriate authorities, state, central government, extra as applicable. And it also should be recognized and affiliated to the applicable accreditation or affiliation agencies, and the highest course offered as a necessary approvals and affiliations. So these are the set of eligibility criteria we'll be looking into, and we will further discuss later the process of elimination and how successful applications will move forward based on this criteria. Now, why the education institutions must apply for this recognition? The education institutions will get an opportunity to validate the best practice and benchmark, because many organizations or institutions will come into play where they will be presenting their core area. Then focus on process approach for effective institutional management, and you will be embarking on a holistic approach focusing on all stakeholders with a special focus on results. And the different departments, activities and practices which will be aligned for realizing the organization's vision and mission. The institutions which applies, they will go through an objective peer assessment with well-defined methodology, which is internationally benchmarked, which is the framework, and they get a comprehensive and value-adding feedback with actionable way forward, so that they know the gaps and they can work on that. Create a culture of performance excellence across the institution through continuous monitoring, through continuous improvement. The culture of performance excellence will be ingrained into every area of this institution. And finally, the institution can be recognized for their commitment and achievement towards performance excellence. Now, here in this slide, we are looking at the process of application. The first thing is that we'll be announcing the recognition program from CII. And the next step in the process is the submission of eligibility verification form by the institutions, where I explained on the eligibility criteria. And if the institutions are deemed fit, they'll move forward, or else the committee or the secretariat will communicate to the applicant about the eligibility loopholes or gaps. And once the application is successful, submission of application forms happens. Our institutions are requested to submit their application form, followed by submission of institutional self-assessment report, ISAR. And once that is submitted, the report is screened for on-site assessment eligibility. So we will look through the report, and based on the report, and there are some guidelines how the report should be prepared, where the report should be complete in covering all the criteria, and also the format that is expected by the secretariat. Based on that, we will look at the report's eligibility to go forward, whether there should be an on-site assessment must be done or not. And again, if they are eligible, it will go for the assessment team formation, and if they are not eligible, the secretariat will send a communication to the applicant with the feedback, about the document assessment. And once that document is successful, the as 2 or 3 or 3 or 4 assessors, depending upon the size of the institution, will assess the institutional assessment report, will be sent to the assessment team, and the document will be assessed by the team. There will be a teleconference with the applicant and the assessment team, followed by another teleconferences. There will be a couple of teleconferences, which will be around 2 hours, followed by teleconference based on broad consensus by the assessment team, and then the on-site assessment will follow. Once the on-site assessment is done, where the assessors will look into the practices that has been already documented. Once it is done, the assessors will submit the assessment report to the CII Award Secretariat, which will be followed by the jury meeting, and then the announcement of the recognition, and finally the assessment report by the assessors will be sent to the applicants for them to take it forward. Now coming to the scoring system, how it has been scored. The scoring process for CII IP Education Framework for Performance Excellence subcategory is based on 2 evaluation dimensions. That is process, which we saw categories 1 to 6, and the results, category 7. So when we look at the process refers to the methods the institution uses and improves, and which addresses the requirements in categories 1 to 6. Now the 4 factors that is used to evaluate the process are abbreviated as ADLI, where A stands for approach, D stands for deployment, L for learning, and I for integration. And there is a score for a process subcategory which is based on the holistic assessment of the overall performance, taking into account the 4 process factors, that is the ADLI. Now let us look in brief about the various factors. First is the approach. The approach comprises the methods used to carry out the process, the appropriateness of these methods to the subcategory requirements and the institution's operating environment, the effectiveness of the use of the methods, and the degree to which the approach is repeatable and based on reliable data and information, that is whether it is systematic and scalable. The next factor is deployment. Deployment is the extent to which the approach addresses subcategory requirements that are relevant and important to the institution, whether the approach is applied consistently, and whether the approach is used by all appropriate departments or campuses. The next factor, learning, comprises the refinement of your approach through cycles of evaluation and improvement, the encouragement of breakthrough change to your approach through innovation, and the sharing of refinements and innovations with other relevant departments or campuses and processes in the institution. And finally, the last factor under the first evaluation dimension of this process is integration. The integration is the extent to which the approach is aligned with institutional needs identified in the institutional profile and other process subcategories, and the measures, information and improvement systems that are complementary across processes and departments or campuses, and also the plans, processes, results, analysis, learning, and actions that are harmonized across processes and departments or campuses to support institutional wide goals. Now coming to the next evaluation dimension, that is the results. Results are the outputs and outcomes the institution achieves which address the requirements in category 7. The 4 factors that are used to evaluate results are levels, trends, comparisons, and integration, which is again abbreviated as LTCI. A score for a result subcategory again is based on a holistic assessment of the overall performance, taking into account the 4 results factor, that is the LTCI. Now let us just look at that in brief. Levels are the current performance on a meaningful measurement scale of the institution, and trends comprises the rate of performance improvement or continuation of good performance in areas of importance such as the academic results, teacher attrition, ranking. And comparisons comprise the performance related to that of other or appropriate institutions such as competitors or institutions similar to your own institution, and also the performance related to education sector, leaders, or benchmarks. Next is the integration, the last results factor. Integration is the extent to which the results measured, often through segmentation, address important performance requirements relating to students and parents, educational programs and services, sectors, processes, and action plans, identified in the institutional profile and also in the process subcategories. It is also the results that includes valid indicators for future performance, and also the results that reflect harmonization across processes and departments to support institutional-wide goals. Now this slide shows a small comparison of the process evaluation that is ADLI with PDSA, where PDSA is plan, do, study and act, and ADLI is approach, deployment, learning and integration. So it just shows the relationship and how they can be used in the continual improvement across the institutions. Now from our side, for this recognition program, we provide a lot of support services in 3 areas. One is building excellence, assessing excellence and recognizing excellence. In building excellence, we conduct a 1-day awareness session for leadership and core team, a 3-day session on building excellence through transformation training program focusing on implementation, counseling and holding services for implementing the excellence framework requirements. And in the case of assessing excellence, there will be a workshop on assessing education excellence based on the LTCI education framework. And dipstick gap assessment, which could be 1 or 2 days based on the size of the institution. And similarly, institutional assessment for understanding performance excellence maturity, which will be maybe around a 3 days program. And finally, the recognizing excellence, where the institutions apply, where they will be recognized based on the scoring 1 star, 2 star, or 3 star, and then we practice sharing sessions across, and also missions and centers where maybe the organized institutions may be doing a domestic visit to the school which is practicing performance excellence. So we have come to the end of the session, and now it's time for question and answers.